Welcome back to the Lap Podcast. I am Tristan Ryans alongside the one and only Khaki Kevin Walker, hosting your destination Formula One podcast following the Azerbaijan Grand Prix a weekend prior, heading into the streets of Singapore, aptly named for the episode of this podcast this week. But before we get started, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. It helps support the channel, costs you absolutely nothing at all. We crossed the 80 subscriber mark recently. I think we're sitting at 81 subscribers, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin. We are chasing that 100 mark before the end of this season. We've got 7 races to go. So if you guys could help us push across that line, we'd absolutely appreciate it. Kevin, what do the people got to do?
You know what to do, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't, right down below, all of the socials, the YouTube, the Instagram, and the TikTok. Make sure you go follow, subscribe, leave comments, share with your grandma, share with your sister, share with your dog, share with your lizard, any amphibian animal that that you can use their paw, claw, whatever to hit subscribe. Just go ahead and do it so you can be a TLP.
Yeah, that's right. Give us a like,
Road to
share the
100.
videos. Any kind of support we get from you guys would be absolutely appreciated. But most importantly, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. If you stumbled on this video, you're thinking, you know what, I'm feeling generous today. Hit that subscribe button. Maybe you'll like what we got going on here. Maybe you'll stick around. But without
You better.
further ado, let's get right into this. There was some rumor. There was some speculation. We've got fresh rumors swirling that another one of the top drivers on the grid could very well be on the move. This time, it's Ferrari's Charles Leclerc. Reports of Leclerc's interest in a possible move to Mercedes, McLaren, or Aston Martin in 2027, according to the Italian media RMC. It's not the first time the Italian media have reported members of the Ferrari pit wall could be on the move. We talked about Fred Vasseur earlier in the year, potentially being sacked, the whole damn thing getting blown up and flipped over and restarted. So obviously that hasn't happened, if I'm not mistaken. Since that initial speculation, he has since been extended. But starting off, Khaki Kevin Walker, do we believe that Charles Leclerc would leave Ferrari?
As a wise poet once said, and that wise poet being me a couple of weeks ago, is there any world that exists where Charles Leclerc is not in a Ferrari? I posed that question to you, and you brought up a very good point where, the emotional decision that went behind Charles driving for Ferrari in the first place, being from Monegasque, or being a Monegasque and being deeply in those roots of Ferrari, it would kind of be a little bit of a shock. It would take a lot for him to make that move. Like we said, it's not, at the end of the day, business is business and Formula One is a business just like anything else. But there's a lot of emotions attached to that for Charles. And so to make a move like that, yeah, at the end of the day, you want to be in the championship caliber car and you want to be in a championship winning team, whether that be any of those 3 teams that we mentioned prior. So obviously speculation is speculation. Silly season is silly season. And we've seen, just like Lewis Hamilton leaving Mercedes to go to Ferrari, anything's possible. But there's a lot of emotions attached to this one in particular.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think it's a tad hard to believe, given how invested Leclerc is into the Ferrari project. Becoming a possible world champion for Ferrari has really been his ambition.
You could argue that he is a Ferrari project.
I mean, he came up through the driver academy, so
Yeah.
he has a lot of experience here. This project and the goal of this project for him have been pretty much his entire life's work. We've all heard about like the white lie that he told his dying father that he had signed a contract with Ferrari. Like the emotional attachment that Charles has to Ferrari, to their ambitions, is very, very well understood. But I think it's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen yet, but I think it's possible that he leaves. And at the end of the day, what's more important to a lot of these guys, what's the most important to effectively every single driver on the grid, is proving that you're the best, being the best, becoming a world freaking champion. That's Charles's ultimate goal. I don't know that it matters so much to him that it's in a red car. I don't know that it matters if it's a green or an orange or a black car or a blue car or whatever.
Orange.
At the end of the day, he wants to be a world champion like Max Verstappen, right? Like we can presume that Oscar Piastri is on his way to being. And he's one of the best drivers on the grid. He's been in this car. He's been in this program. He's been driving for Ferrari for, years and years and years. I think he has aspirations beyond it. And if Ferrari get off to a really rough start in 2026, reports of a very ambitious approach to the next regulations has been, out there. It's been reported on. I would not be shocked if the Monegasque driver, if Charles Leclerc is effectively on the market, similar to what you've seen from maybe Max Verstappen, where
Poking around.
The word's always kind of out, right? He's always a little bit looking. He's just seeing what his options are. Charles's deal ends, I believe, at the end of 2026. So he's going to have a full year of being with Ferrari, getting the lay of the land, at least by the halfway point of that season. He's going to completely know, all right, these are the front runners for the season. These are the front runners right now for this current regulation. These are the places where I could go. These are the places I could go to get at least an improved odds, especially if Ferrari completely botched the next regulation. I don't think they're going to be so far back. Of course, they've got a long history. They've got a great, history of success. They've been very competitive, but they just have not had that world championship level car, if you will. They haven't had the world championship level strategy since the days of Kimi Räikkönen, since the days of Michael Schumacher. So, they teetered around the edges here and there, but they haven't quite made that leap. So the three teams that were named as, people that his representation had conversations with: Aston Martin, Mercedes, and McLaren, of all teams. And I wanted to start here. Why would it make sense for him to maybe go to Mercedes, Kevin? At least in your eyes.
I want to talk about why he would go to McLaren.
Well, we'll go one at a time.
I know.
One at a time. We'll start here.
I don't think it does make any sense. I don't think it makes any sense at all, actually. Because when I sit here and I look at Mercedes, is there really a driver that Mercedes wants to part ways with? I mean, that's just kind of how I look at it. I mean, obviously, I know that you're going to have an opinion on it being the Mercedes guy, but let me see if I can find this. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna pull the TLPs behind the curtain just a little bit, because whenever this story or these alleged reports broke out, I did send this to Tristan, and I put my comment out there about what a McLaren matchup would look like with Charles, and you responded back, "I'm racking my brain over how nasty a George and Leclerc lineup would be," which was interesting to me. I literally responded with interesting, because you'd be punting on the idea of Kimi. Now, I'm going to pose this question to you, because as an outsider, I don't see any reason why Mercedes would want to move off of George or Kimi more one than the other to bring in a Charles Leclerc.
I think the possibility of Leclerc and a Mercedes in 27 effectively does come down to what Kimi looks like in 2026. Because, you've seen these moments of greatness in 2025. He sniffed a podium in Baku last time out, 4th place. He's got the podium in Canada. I think that it would take a very disastrous kind of 2026 for this to not be the lineup moving forward for at least the next 3 to 4 years between George and Kimi, but he would effectively be that higher risk guy between him and George. To me, that just makes the most sense. George is currently lapping around 3 to 4 tenths ahead of Kimi right now at 18 years old. And if Kimi can take a step forward at age 19 in year 2, I don't see why Mercedes would move off of their prodigy. That being said, if there was one driver within the dynamic that you'd be like, well, we have one very proven commodity in George Russell, so far, Kimi is still the relatively unproven, right? He still had a lot of learning to do. He's had moments this year, even when the team hasn't necessarily been hamstringing him on certain strategy calls or the engine blowing up. He still had his fair share of rookie mistakes. Do I believe that it's going to happen with Mercedes? No. I agree that I don't think that this is a match for them. Do I blame Charles on maybe having a conversation or his representation on maybe, putting out feelers? No, that's what you should do. It's just part of the business.
Especially if Mercedes were to offer him a lot of money, then he could go back to another team and say, well, I'm being offered X dollars. Can you match?
Oh, 100%. And that's another angle on this too. It could very well just be a contract negotiation thing for Charles. Sure. But yeah, I don't necessarily see Mercedes as that team to make the jump for. Russell would not be the odd man out here. They're working on a contract extension as we speak. Still hasn't quite been finished. My curiosity would be that what if something like this is the reason why the George deal hasn't been done? But with all due respect to Charles, I don't know that this is enough to make them move the needle one way or the other so much on George, the same way that the speculation has been around Max. Yeah, I don't quite see Mercedes as the fit. There were the other two teams, though, that I mentioned, though, and we'll go to your boys, McLaren. And I wanted to start off here and then let you get your 2 cents, if that's all right. Oscar Piastri signed through the end of 2027. I went out of my way to go investigate this. Lando Norris's deal is speculated to end after 2026, potentially leaving the door open for a change of scenery for both Norris and Charles. And Oscar's championship base in year 3, massive improvements. I don't think it's implausible that by the end of 2026, he could very well have solidified himself as the top dog, the driver 1 for the Papaya team. I don't think it's impossible. And that might very well leave Lando Norris to look elsewhere for any potential championship aspirations where, hey, like it's just not going to happen here. How do I become that driver 1 somewhere else? How do I regain the ability to become a driver's champion, potentially with with all due respect, a weaker teammate? I think Leclerc to McLaren, a little ring to it, but would be an interesting proposition, especially across from a likely championship winner Piastri. But it'd be a great marketing move for McLaren. I think it'd be a great marketing move for him. 2 iconic brands in Formula One. There's a lot there. I think that if Ferrari really do miss hard, given the dynamics possibly at play, I don't think this one is impossible. I just don't. I don't know that. I think it mostly comes down to what Lando wants to do. Don't get me wrong. But I don't see it as impossible. I don't see it as impossible that Lando Norris might look for a change of scenery to try to find a championship elsewhere, and that leaving a door open. So what about you? Aston Martin, or excuse me, McLaren with Charles Leclerc, Piastri, maybe?
I would have to lean with you and say that I also don't think it's impossible. This year showed a lot, and we'll see what McLaren looks like in the regulations, and the new regulations coming up. But with how the contracts are going to plan out, Zach Brown would be a fool. I know that social media loves to joke that Zach Brown, loves Lando, hates Oscar, and doesn't want Oscar to succeed at anything in life. And Lando's the golden boy. But, Zach, he would have to, if Charles is on the market, at least shop that and see, what would an Oscar Charles, that'd be massive. That'd be seismic. That would be crazy.
Actually, I'll ask you an aside question here. Do you think that if Charles walked into a McLaren, let's say he got a year to adjust, we'll assume that they, at least starting in 2028, we'll say that this could very well be a very interesting championship dynamic. Let's say McLaren are right there competing for a championship, if not maybe coming off another championship. Who do you think between Oscar and Charles is quicker? And obviously it's a couple years out, but even given where they are right now, if you had swapped them, do you think this is a layup championship for Charles over Lando? Or
I think what does that look like? I think of Charles and Oscar very similarly. They're both very quick, and they're aggressive, but they're not like Max Verstappen, I'll put you in the wall kind of aggressive. But they know when to attack. And another thing that I think about when I think of Oscar Piastri, and the Charles Leclerc comparison is their defense. They're both very, very talented defensively. And we've seen it in years past with how Charles defends against Max. And we've seen it here and there with how Oscar defends against Lando and Max and all the others approaching the top. So when I think about them, ironically, I think about them very, very similarly. Who will be quicker at that time? Man, Charles is very quick.
Do you think that I'll put it to you like this. Do you think if Charles had been driving in the McLaren this year, that this championship would have been different for Piastri, right? Let's say Lando Norris, something happened.
I think it'd be a lot more. I think it'd be a lot more back and forth rather than catching up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would. I don't think it's an argument to say that Charles is absolutely better than Lando. I mean, with all due respect,
I think you would say in theory, Oscar will be a little bit more
pressured.
No, not even pressured. Like he'd be a little bit more comfortable in that McLaren system come that time. You said 2028. So
let's say we've given Charles a year to get acclimated with everything that happens.
That'd be his 5th or 6th year in Formula One at that point. For Oscar, Charles will obviously be a little bit older at that point. Off the top of your head, how old is Charles right now? 24, 25?
Somewhere around that. Figure this out while you think. While you continue to expand.
So we sit here and we say, how are these guys going to look 3 years from now?
30. He'd still be 30, right there in his prime.
Okay, so he'd be 30. I think ideally you would like to think with age that people might get slower, unless you're Lewis Hamilton, and then that just doesn't really matter. But you're not going to drive the same. I would say at that time probably Oscar would be quicker. But if McLaren continued to develop the way that they're developing their car now and they ace the new regulations, there's no reason why that car is not still a championship caliber car that can compete for wins.
Yeah. I think it would be an interesting prospect. I don't know if you can necessarily rule it out. There is one more team on the table here that I did want to discuss too, which is Aston Martin was a part of these conversations, allegedly, right? Because we don't know. That's one of these weird sports where you don't know anything until you know anything. Yeah. But I think that for this to happen, it really just comes down to the Strolls, the same way that we talked about Max taking a leap out of Red Bull. You could kind of copy and paste those scenarios onto Charles, where like a Ferrari are struggling to open 2026 and seem quite a bit behind, and they are consistently behind maybe Aston Martin. Charles might not want to spend any more of his prime seasons in a team that cannot contend for a championship. He wants to go somewhere else, greener pastures, pun intended. This would really hinge on Lawrence Stroll giving his son the tough talk. Alonso potentially retiring if he has a strong 2026. Something that he's addressed, though, he's alluded to, if things go well in 2026, it might very well be my last year. I've been chasing a competitive car and competitive racing for many years. And if I have that, I think it's a very good way to close my career. So even if Alonso doesn't necessarily win a championship to start the next regulations, to him, as long as he's up there and competing and showing off his talent the way that he feels like he still can, at age 75, he feels like maybe 2026 might very well be his final season. Oldest rookie on the grid. But let's say both Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc were semi-available. And Aston Martin looked competitive. Man, it's just being the question
that's a wrinkle I did not think about.
Yeah, thinking about that. That's the other angle. That's why I wanted to save Aston Martin for last. Is Verstappen's going to continue to be a name talked about until his deal ends in 2028, no matter what. And he has the exit clause that's been widely reported on as, if Red Bull are under 4th place in the constructors, then he can activate that exit clause. If Aston Martin show up and are putting up numbers under an Adrian Newey design and with a Honda engine and with that infrastructure, the billions of dollars they poured into,
I was going to say money's not a problem.
Money not being the problem for Stroll or the Aston Martin project, at least when it comes to things that are outside of the salary cap or the cost cap. I can't imagine a reason why, Stroll doesn't necessarily give Lance that tough talk and go, I have the opportunity to get both Max Verstappen multiple championship winning driver, and Charles Leclerc, his potentially closest rival at this stage.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be...
And we can just make you the reserve driver and you'll get the trophies too, bro.
Sure. Yeah, you're a part of everything. You helped build the foundation, Lance. You were an integral part of this. But the potential for that lineup would be ridiculous. Imagining, again, contextually, that if Aston Martin are putting up, let's say, like P3, they're competitive, they're hitting podiums here and there. If the improvement is just on a driver's side, hey, the car's pretty good. We've
seen what Max can do with a
We've seen what Max can do with what is effectively a midfield car.
You give Max a podium worthy Aston Martin, he'll win. He'll contend for wins for sure. And
same
and
thing,
I would say probably with Charles. Yeah, so with Charles as well. Man, that's the wrinkle I didn't think about.
Do you think that they would play nice? Do you think that they could work together to not
Everyone
just win
wants
constructors? But...
Everybody wants to play nice when they want to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'll start nice, but I mean, dude, Max has already shown in his older years that he's not as, dare I say, aggressive or
I think I might disagree with that. But
I just don't think he's so much as I don't give an F about my life or anyone else's. I want to win this race. Like he's got family now. He's got a little bit like that. But I mean, not to say he's not competitive. I mean, dude's racing on weekends. He doesn't even have to. So
we think these things, and then I watch him, dive on the inside of people in GT3 just on a side quest, shooting it up the inside in his souped up Ferrari, first win of a Ferrari driver this year, and put people to shame in his first GT3 race at the Nürburgring. I mean, the dude's ridiculous. I don't think it matters if he's got one kid, no kids, 5 kids. The dude wants to win races. That's what he's built for. It's in his blood.
I get it. I'm not. This isn't a Max Verstappen segment. I think that it would be neat. I don't think it's very likely. I would say the likeliness of just Charles, bringing it back to Charles himself. I think the likeliness of Charles going to Aston Martin, if you say that it's 15% likely that he goes to McLaren, I would say that it's about 15% that he could go to Aston Martin as well. It just depends on how each of these teams nail the new regulations. I would also argue that money's not necessarily an issue for McLaren. It's not like they're going to be like, "Oh, we can't afford to pay Charles Leclerc." You know what I mean? Like everyone's going to they're going to figure it out. It's just which team's the better destination and which team makes more sense. I would think maybe McLaren makes more sense, being that they do have an esteemed veteran championship-worthy driver in Oscar Piastri already there. With Aston Martin, it would be kind of like, hey, do you want to drive alongside Lance Stroll, or are they going to have to go out and find someone else? That's kind of like the only thing I can think of with Aston Martin, where there's kind of a question mark there as far as who would be that tandem alongside Charles. I mean, maybe it could be Max. Maybe it could be Max, but who knows?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, he wouldn't be the first, former Ferrari driver to drive the Aston Martin, a la Sebastian Vettel. So I don't think that it's impossible to say that if the Aston Martin seat really does become available for 2027, if the car is competitive, that they don't make a big swing. But nonetheless, it really just comes down to what Ferrari does. To bring it all kind of home here and wrap it up, so we've been talking about this extensively. If Ferrari, at least they're competitive, I don't see why he leaves. He wants to be at Ferrari. He is a Ferrari driver. That's always been his aspiration and his goal. Although we've been shocked before. Lewis Hamilton decided to pick up and leave Mercedes after, over a decade of success there, right?
Yeah,
he decided to leave the Mercedes. He left the Mercedes power unit, driving a Mercedes engine for a long time, even with McLaren, leaving that system for the first time really in his career, for this season. Anything can happen. It's a very interesting sport. There's a lot to speculate. This is going to be something to kind of keep in mind as we move forward. But if Ferrari absolutely botch with this ambitious approach to the 2026 regulation change,
it'll heat up.
It'll heat up quite quickly. And I want to know what the TLPs think. This is quite a long conversation to start this episode, but I want to know what the TLPs think. Do you guys think that Charles Leclerc is a homer for Ferrari for life? Do we think that he's going to potentially make his move somewhere green, somewhere black, somewhere orange, somewhere blue, somewhere pink? Who knows? I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Let us know, TLPs. Moving forward, this is a segment that I did want to talk about. I feel like it was worth mentioning, and it's been a bit of a slow news cycle between races, with all due respect, but F3 did something interesting. They announced a prize fund. A story I saw over the weekend. And I did want to highlight this because F3 giving the top 5 drivers of Formula 3 a share of a €1 million prize pool, which inspired me to really discuss how insanely impossible it can be for anyone to reach F1. I want to ask you a question, Kevin. How much do you think it costs to reach Formula 1? Just ballpark it. You don't have to think super hard about this. I already have the answers. Let's say I'll give you the context.
Okay.
From karting age to Formula 1, let's say 19 years old. How much do you think it costs?
25 million.
Okay, maybe a bit aggressive, but it is in the millions.
I was trying to think of like sponsorship deals and things. Like maybe.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of different ways to get to Formula 1 monetarily, but this is a money
close
sport.
to 5.
This is a money game. According to estimates from Grand Prix 24/7, it's a very long and expensive road to Formula 1. They estimate, I would argue very conservatively, at €5 million / $5 million
I was right the second
in costs just to reach Formula 1. Other publications that I read ranging even beyond $12 million / €12 million, even up to 15. For context, estimates from Grand Prix 24/7, $50,000 to $100,000 per year for karting. This is going to include your travel, your kits, your materials, your engineering, parts, labor, etc. $200,000 to $300,000 per year for Formula 4. $800,000 to $1.2 million per season for Formula 3. And then a $2 to $3 million per year for Formula 2 before reaching Formula 1. And what Formula 3 are going to be doing, respectfully, is at least a little bit helpful. If you're one of these top 5 drivers, this is, of course, not going to go for everybody, but if you're one of these top 5 drivers, a share of a $1 million prize pool for something that's going to cost $800,000 to $1.2 million, getting some kind of money back, getting something to put towards the effort to maybe make it to Formula 2, to get some kind of return on investment.
Or just put money in your pocket if you've got sponsors covering the bill.
Yeah. I mean, that is super helpful. First place would get a $300,000 drop in the bucket, so to speak. Second place, $250,000. Third, $200,000. Fourth, $150,000. Fifth, €100,000. It's interesting to think about how expensive these things are, how unfortunately unattainable it is for people like you and me to throw our kids into the sport and be like, you're really going to be the next world champion. Because I did want to discuss, I did want to discuss this as, what does it look like to get to Formula 1? What does it take? Let's say with money, you still have to have the skill, physical endurance, the mental toughness, and you still need some deep damn pockets. Deep pockets. A la Lance Stroll. And we dog on Lance Stroll all the time. We give him a lot of crap. We give him flack. And I get it. But you have to have some level of skill to at least be qualified to make this sport.
I mean, you can't just... Yeah, I mean, you're right. We do.
There have certainly been worse pay drivers on the grid in his time that he has outlasted.
We dog on Lance Stroll quite a bit, and he is one of our favorites for DNFs of the week. But I mean, at the end of the day, dude, Lance Stroll's a solid driver, and I mean, hell, I mean, I'm not trying to make anyone catch strays, but I mean, he lasted longer than Mick Schumacher did.
Mm-hmm.
He lasted a lot longer than a lot of these other guys did.
Nikita Mazepin, another pay driver, right?
I was just about to say Mazepin. Yeah. I mean, he had a lot of sponsorship deals with him. It was a big deal when they cut him. So yeah, I mean, yeah, we dog on him quite a bit, but it's just because he's still here. At the end of the day, Lance Stroll's a solid driver. He's on the grid for a reason.
Now, he might not have necessarily gotten to this stage
Oh,
of the
hey,
sport
nepotism's nepotism. It is what it
without the
is.
financial support. But
Yeah.
I mean, he's stuck around and he has had some points finishes. He's made a podium. He's one of the youngest podium finishers of all time.
Hey, if he DNF'd every weekend, his dad would have his dad would
No
have
choice.
to fire him. Yeah, but he's not.
Yeah.
So
with money, it still takes skill. It still takes endurance. It still takes some toughness. Without money, you still have to have not even just skill. You need to have supreme talent to get noticed by a scout, get signed to a development deal with a team, which they might help you pay your way through. You might still have to figure out some other kind of financial incentive. I mean, Lewis Hamilton's talked about how expensive it was and how taxing it was for his father and his family to put him through at least the early stages of his career, his dad working like 3 to 4 jobs, yada, yada. And even with being an academy driver, guys like Charles Leclerc, guys like, Gabriel Bortoleto, each one of these teams have systems and networks they run through. You might not even make it to Formula One still. Mm-hmm. The odds are not in your favor. Even with the supreme talent, you could never get your shot. Think about how many guys become reserve drivers and then just don't even whiff the track beyond a practice session. How many rookies, don't really end up being anything more than that practice session fill-in for what Formula One is currently.
Or not even that. Maybe, there's just some guys who are strictly used for driving for, on the stream or sim racing just to get specs out for the car.
Yeah.
We'll never know the names of.
I mean, yeah, there's a gentleman for Mercedes that does that. And heck, it's terrible because I knew his name and then all of a sudden I forgot it. But nonetheless, like it is like this, it's just proving your point. And after all of this, again, there's only 22 seats beginning in Formula One in 2025 or 2026, excuse me. Let's say you don't have the money and you don't have that level of supreme talent. Enjoy sim racing, buddy. I mean, it's going to be different. It's not going to look like Formula One.
Yeah.
And possibly different dreams for different series, right? Maybe GT3 or maybe some other series, which are still very admirable.
IndyCar. I mean, hell, NASCAR. Like anything motorsports is an expensive sport to get into.
Formula E, there's all sorts of different series, but like the amount of money it really takes to get to this level, the amount of skill, the amount of, honestly, to be fair, there's a certain level of luck involved, even just getting an opportunity at it. It's a very, very, very high bar to reach. And
knowledge. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know how to market yourself, how to make yourself marketable to getting
in front of the right people.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, winning solves everything, right? If you can just win, it'll come to you is kind of the idea. But even some of the best drivers in the world, good winners, still not close to this level. And I guess this wasn't necessarily like a huge point. Like I didn't have a final like bow to really put on this, but it just kind of like talks about how expensive, how very challenging it is for people to dream of this sport, for people to leverage their entire lives. There are families that put everything that they have behind some of these drivers. You talk about guys in Formula 2 who've reached that level, whose entire families have leveraged, like mortgaged the house, right? Like taking out loans and putting all this money and all this effort and all this energy into giving you the opportunity to hopefully pay it off and become a Formula One driver. And then getting up to that level, if you can't crack it, right? You get a few $1 million contract, that helps pay some of that stuff off. But along the way, maybe a sponsorship deal has a percentage, your agent's fees, other things that cost. It really is an ambitious and daring and huge leap of faith for a lot of these families in every circumstance, even if you are pretty well off, to put your kids through this. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I guess maybe a bit of a hats off to the guys who do get to that level, who do stick around and who can make careers out of Formula One. Guys like Carlos Sainz who don't necessarily win every single race. Guys like Alex Albon who've stuck around the sport for a long time without a win. Pierre Gasly's only got one win. Like you have a lot of these veteran drivers who stuck around and done a fantastic job. Nico Hülkenberg, who's been, who was on the grid at a certain point, became a reserve driver at another point, now back to being, a full-time driver. All this to say, it's ambitious, it's scary, it's daring, and, for anybody who really does make this their career, like, I guess this is kind of like that that moment of adoration where it's like, hey, look, it's tough and I respect you for it. It's challenging. And it's unfortunately not very attainable. It's like I don't know if I had to guesstimate it, it'd probably be like 0.0001% of every driver with an aspiration to make it to Formula One makes it. So it takes a lot. It takes a lot. But at the end of the day, if you got the skill, you can make it pretty far, but not everybody, even with the skill, makes it this far. So I don't know. I didn't really have like a nice little bow to put on this. But I did want to talk about it, how I think it's a really good step forward, at least in a way. And it helps these families and it helps put something back into that investment. Top 5 among a huge pool of drivers, with all due respect. But it is helpful for these guys who can try to make it to the next level. So, okay. With that being said, let's move on to one of our favorite segments. It's time for What's More Likely with the Singapore Grand Prix. I've got my 2 ready to go, locked and loaded. I know Kevin had one that he was pretty interested in. Have we developed the second question? Have we figured it out?
We have not developed the second question.
All right. Well, we'll try to make the best of what we got with our 3. That's perfectly fine. I'll start this off.
I'm not gonna force it. Okay, I'm not gonna force it.
Don't force it. It's fine. No, we'll make 3 work. But next time, better have 4. But what's more likely? Let's go. I'm going to start this off. Kevin Walker, what's more likely? We get an Alpine in the points this weekend in Singapore, or we get another rookie on the podium this weekend.
Alpine points or rookie on the podium. Oh, that is tough.
Yeah.
Alpine points or rookie on the podium. I'm gonna go Alpine points.
Yeah. I feel like I would agree. It's been tough, man. This year it's been very challenging. We've seen some interesting podiums. We've seen a couple of rookies on the podium between Kimi Antonelli and Isaac Hadjar. I think I would also agree that an Alpine's probably going to hit the points, though. That just you have the odds are a lot better. You could have some DNFs up at the front of the field. Pierre Gasly could absolutely pull through. Franco Colapinto could maybe surprise us. Who knows? But I think the smart money would probably put it on Alpine. But I think that this question, and you even having to think about it, is a bit of a testament to how good some of the drivers have been this year. I mean, nothing has been off the table for anybody this season. Nico Hülkenberg getting a podium, not a rookie, of course. Carlos Sainz as well. But Kimi Antonelli landing a podium, close to getting his second in Baku. Isaac Hadjar, 1 DNF in front of him from Lando Norris, and there he is, podium place. Had a hell of a drive to be in P4 in the first place anyway. It's not impossible. I mean, I'm not going to say that an Ollie Behrman and a Haas or maybe a Gabriel Bortoleto maybe, but Gabriel Bortoleto's had some really impressive drives this season too. I think it's a bit of a testament that we even thought about it, that this could happen. Kevin, your turn. What do you got for me?
All right. I did develop a second. All right. My first one.
Okay. Surprise.
My first one. This is more centered around, this is kind of going back onto the Charles Leclerc thing. So this is more for the future than anything. My next one will be this race weekend centered. Would you say that it's more likely, what's more likely? Charles Leclerc stays in a Ferrari, or Charles Leclerc will be, so pretty much it's going to be Charles Leclerc and Ferrari or versus the field. Ferrari versus the field.
Beginning in 2027?
Yes.
My heart tells me it's probably going to be him staying in a Ferrari. I have a hard time believing that Ferrari are going to be P5 or worse. I think at worst case scenario for them is P4. Now, that's a bad season for Ferrari. Don't get it twisted. But even P4, you could find your way to winning some races. P4, you're finding your way onto the podium. And P4, hell, we've seen teams come back from much worse to become championship contenders, a la McLaren, who the first couple of years of these regulations were nowhere to be found, suddenly now are going to win a constructor's title for 2 years in a row, and one of their drivers is going to win a driver's championship. I think it takes a lot of fumbling on Ferrari's part for Charles to no longer be in the red. What do you think?
I'm going to agree. because I know that as much struggle as Ferrari has had this year, I know that it's been reported that they've put a lot of focus and energy into the new regulation. Um, and as much as Ferrari messes up, and I would imagine that the leash, if you will, from Charles to McLaren or to Ferrari is short. I'd imagine that they're gonna do better than they are right now, and he'll probably stay in Ferrari.
What's more likely, Kevin Walker? We get 2 DNFs this weekend or 2 non-McLarens on the podium? Unforgiving street circuit. The walls are close. This is a circuit that's going to have its fair share of DNFs, at least in my opinion. We got 20 drivers in the grid. We got all these rookies, all these younger drivers. Something's going to happen, surely, right? I'm going to say DNFs. I want to hear what you think, though.
I'm actually going to agree with you. I was kind of leaning DNFs anyway. I know. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to argue with you and fight you all the time, but I'm actually going to agree. I think a double DNF is actually more likely.
Yeah, and McLaren last year, they performed pretty well, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I know Lando Norris absolutely blitzed the field. He had like a 22-something second win, kicked a lot of ass. I want to say Oscar wasn't even – I want to say Oscar might have rounded out the podium. But I don't expect them to be out of the mix in the slightest. I would be surprised if at a circuit that does characteristically go towards the strength of this year's McLarens, which is a lot more downforce, which is a lot more higher speed or lower speed cornering, if you will, a lot more degradation focused. This is a circuit that, to me, plays very, very, very well into what McLaren does well. Go ahead, take it away. What's your second and final? What's more likely, Kevin?
In the Singapore Grand Prix, what's more likely? A double Williams points finish or a double McLaren podium finish?
I'm going to say a McLaren podium. I'm going to say a double McLaren podium. And I say this because it's been a bit inconsistent for Williams at times this year. It's been more inconsistent for Williams to have both their drivers in the points, with all due respect, than it has been, at least in my eyes, of this car on these style of circuits being not a factor. So I think that McLaren are probably going to secure the constructors this weekend. I think that maybe I'm jinxing them, of course, but I think that McLaren are probably going to find both their cars on the podium this weekend. I think Lando Norris is a great opportunity to win. I think that Oscar Piastri is going to be right there in the mix. For Oscar, this is going to be a weekend where if he wins, he extends that gap out to a race and then some. To him, this is a very important weekend. For Lando, this is carving out ever that much more into Oscar's lead. We are literally sitting at 25 points separating these guys. I think McLaren's going to be pretty locked in this weekend. What about you?
I'm going to go with a double Williams points finish.
We finally disagreed on something.
It didn't take long.
Didn't take long.
I'm going to go with a double Williams points finish. I think that it's going to happen. I think Williams are going to be firing on all cylinders coming off that monstrous performance from Carlos. I think he's been the one that's been struggling the most for Williams this year. And that's saying a lot, being that they're still, right there smack dab in the middle at P5 in the constructors. So I think double Williams points finish.
Then which driver, I'll press you on this here. Which driver doesn't make the podium for you for McLaren then?
Well, I guess we'll have to save that for P10, won't we?
Way to hold the people in a way to keep them waiting, keep them guessing.
We'll pay off the T's.
All right, look, let's get this one out of the way though. Let's move forward with our track talk in 60 seconds. To be fair, I think I might need 90, but I'll try to keep it within 60.
I'll give you 75 seconds.
75 seconds. All right. So track talk in 75 this specific weekend. Whenever you're ready, Kevin Walker, I'm ready to go. Let's get this thing going.
1 second.
This is fantastic podcasting, filling the time with my voice. People love hearing me just ramble. But there's a lot going on in Singapore.
I just like listening to you ramble. So are you ready? 1, 2, 3.
62 laps around Singapore street circuit. We got 4.94 kilometers of length to 3.06 miles. The lap record for the race, 1 minute, 34 seconds, 0.486 seconds by Daniel Ricciardo in a V-carb of all things in 2024, if I'm not mistaken. Qualifying record, 1 minute, 29 seconds, 0.525 by Lando Norris in a McLaren in 2024. Most wins belong to Sebastian Vettel, 3 with Red Bull, 2 with Ferrari, 4 DRS zones after turns 4, 13, 14, and 19. First winner, 2008. Fernando Alonso in a Renault. Very interesting T here. Crashgate 2008. Renault's Nelson Piquet Jr. deliberately crashed after his teammate Alonso made an early stop, prompting the rest of the field to pit. Alonso grabbed the lead after starting 15th place. Eventually the win, eventually dropped by Renault, was Piquet. Following the 2009 Hungarian Grand Prix, Piquet broke the news that he was asked to crash on purpose. This had a major fallout where guys like Flavio Briatore and Pat Simons were asked to leave the team, but return to the sport at certain points. This weekend, weather-wise, you can expect a lot of wet, stormy weather, FP1, 2, and 3. Then Sunday race, dry race start around 29, 84 degrees Fahrenheit, high humidity. There we are.
About 85.
Race in 75. Yeah. There was a little bit. I really wanted to summarize Crashgate as best as I possibly could. There's so much more within that it really is worth going out of your way to like watch a YouTube video on this or make sure to read up on it, because it changed a lot for the championship that season. It changed a lot for Renault as a whole. And it's still a very controversial moment in Formula One history.
If you say anything, you put gate behind it, typically it's controversial. So
yeah, that's normally how it would go. But with that being said, we have run a little bit longer than expected. Let's talk about our P10 predictions for Singapore and then get the heck out of here. P10 predictions. Do you have the chart ready to go? Do you have it pulled up?
One moment.
So if you don't know what P10 is, ladies and gentlemen, as I sit here incredibly prepared, yes, there is the chart. P10 is our way of predicting the Formula One season. You predict who's going to come in 10th place. You get a maximum of 25 points for that guess. The winner, as well as the first driver to DNF for that given race weekend. As you can see last weekend, very close result between me and Kevin. I eked out 3 more points onto my lead. Lead's a little bit, far away for Kevin at the moment, but nothing's impossible here. He could have some pretty strong weekends. Great face you're making there. Like I couldn't see you. But with that all out of the way, Kevin Walker, do you have your P10 predictions locked and loaded and ready to go?
I do.
All right. How confident are we feeling about this?
I feel pretty good about them. We're going back to the well a little bit, but I feel pretty good about them.
Okay. Well, I'll start off with DNF this week. Who do you think is going to be the first DNF this week?
I'm going back to the well. I'm going back for your boy. Give me Franco Colapinto.
Franco Colapinto. Man.
He's a regular for this one.
I don't know that I necessarily blame you. I get it. I mean, so far, Alpine have had their fair share of DNFs this year. But funny enough, the driver who has the most first DNFs of a race weekend this year is Pierre Gasly. I'm going to that well. Give me Pierre Gasly to DNF this weekend first. That's the operative here for this game. It has to be the first driver to retire.
Okay.
Race winner. We'll move here. I am going to go with Oscar Piastri. I think that qualifying wise, he has caught up with Lando Norris. I think that him getting a better position to start this race is going to make things a lot closer at the jump. I could very well see Oscar Piastri grabbing P1 pole, especially after a very frustrating Azerbaijan Grand Prix weekend. I'm going to go with Oscar Piastri.
And then I'm going to go with the counterpart.
Charles Leclerc.
Give me Lando Norris.
All right. And for P10, I might as well reveal this first. I'll give you an opportunity to possibly amend if need be. But I am going to go with the one, the only, Liam Lawson. I think Liam Lawson is going to have a nice performance here. He's had a really strong season at times and has, at least in my eyes, earned himself an opportunity to drive the V-Carb again next year, even if Isaac Hadjar does actually get that promotion officially. Liam Lawson has some good history here in Singapore as well. If I'm not mistaken, he got his first points here as a Formula One driver when he was filling in for Daniel Ricciardo. So I'm going to go with Liam Lawson.
All right, you're going with Liam Lawson. Let's see. This is
I
funny.
thought you had this ready to go, locked and
No,
loaded.
I do. I wanted to double check something. This is funny. I'm gonna go with I'm going with Isaac Hadjar.
Isaac Hadjar. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Respectable guess. We're both we're across the board going V-Carb, Alpine, and McLaren's up and down the slate here. So we're invested in effectively these three teams throughout the entire weekend. I like it.
Literally all of our drivers are the counterparts of the other drivers. So
yeah, it's great. What a fun time. Look, before we get out of here, by the way, I did want to mention this. RIP to Roscoe Hamilton. Yes. Sad day in Formula One. Lewis Hamilton's, much loved, doggo counterpart, Roscoe Hamilton, passing away at the age of 12 this week. If you've been a Formula One fan for a little while, probably saw him in a lot of media, got a good glance at this doggo. Very lively, very jovial dog. So always sucks when you lose a pet. So extending our heartfelt condolences to Lewis for losing Roscoe Hamilton. So, little salute there for the pupper. But all that being said, that's going to do it for this episode of the Lap Podcast. We want to thank you guys for watching or listening all the way to the end. If you haven't joined the rest of the TLPs yet, what the hell are you doing? Hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to the channel. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on TikTok. For now, it costs absolutely nothing at all and helps massively with the algorithm for you to subscribe. Give us that support. Engage with us. Comment. Hit the like button. Get the bell on if you feel so daring. And join more Formula One fans like yourselves as a member of this community. But with all that being said, until next time, that is Khaki Kevin Walker. I am Tristan Ryans. Be safe, be well, and let's go racing.